Now, the Kanza arrival was probably the late 15th century. The Kanza remember through story to today the times of the woolly mammoths. But we know that woolly mammoths weren't here in the 15th century. So how do we make sense of that? Well, the Ka people were, to some extent, welcomed and absorbed into the indigenous communities that were already here when they arrived, and the Ka took on the memories of this land as their memories. And as we will hear later through the stories of the Celts and Christianity, the arrival of new peoples and ideas need not eradicate the ones who were there before. Though the white settlers here, many of them failed in this regard, many of our ancestors here and around the world succeeded. And so today I'm wearing the Celtic cross from my grandmother in honor of that history and that ancestry. Humanity is capable, we are capable of being gracious new arrivals, of respectfully receiving the stories and memories of our hosts as our own. We are capable of being generous hosts, offering our stories to those who will carry them forward. We remember our ancestors who were able to do that and those who weren't. And we cultivate this capacity to be kind together here at UUFM. We have some great activities coming up. Please look in the announcements in your order of service. And read our monthly newsletter, which came out by email on Thursday. Both the Countering White Christian Nationalism talk this afternoon at First Congregational and the movie here next Sunday afternoon have Zoom options. So you can go to our calendar at uufm.net to get the Zoom links. Today's service is very special. We will be led by Frank Siegle, Danny Proud, Mary Siegle, and Martin Proud, who you already met coming in with the music. After the service, follow Martin and everyone, follow the music out into the narthex, where we will be getting plates of food. Then come back in here to eat. I don't think we'll be setting up tables. It's lap food because you'll want to direct your attention up front. So when we get settled with our food, I will invite anyone who's brought an object for our heritage altar over the month of October to share a brief story about one of their items. And then we'll have a concert of music shared by Danny, Martin, and Frank. So the closed, I'm hearing concern about the closed captioning. It's coming. It's coming. So it's going to be a fun morning, and you'll go home with full bellies. But first, let's be nourished by the story of the Celts.
With the story for all ages. It reminds us of our human heritage, beginning with a story emerging from the deep past, and as it moves and changes among peoples of Asia, Europe, and the Americas, it weaves a tapestry of our common humanity. It narrows into the story of one group of people who were conquered and in decline, but their perseverance and survival offers one element of hope for human and ecological wholeness. It also reminds us of our tragic tale of empire, conquest, and colonization, and that we come as descendants of interlopers who wrested the land we gather on today from people who lived here for thousands of years. It was theirs, though that was not their point of view. We now claim it as ours, but at base, we are but one species sharing this small speck floating in the universe. Come gather around for the story for all ages. Any children here or people of young of heart, come forward. It's kind of a long story, but I'll try to make it quick. Okay. First slide. Yep. Once upon a time, long, long ago, at the beginning of stories maybe, it was said that there was a northern paradise somewhere up here in Siberia. Now, this is a big country inside of another big country, Russia. And this Siberia stretches all the way to almost Alaska. There was a golden mountain there with everything one might need, a kind of a garden. At the top of this mountain grew a great tree that connected the earth with the pole star of the constellation we often call the Big Dipper. There was a woman in the people that lived there who was a protector of the people and a healer. She could also talk with every creature in the living, and also with the deities and the great creator herself. There are 7 stars that make up the Dipper that people saw as a bear. Change slide. No, we don't have the Big Dipper? Okay. All right, you know what the Big Dipper looks like. And people saw that as a bear. It's called, so I sum, Ursa Major, which is Latin for Great Bear. We tend to call it a Big Dipper because we don't have bears around here. They believed that, and for some reason, the climate changed perhaps, it got colder, and it froze over, and there was a lot of snow, and people left this beautiful place, and they couldn't find it again. And so some of them turned south, and they met up with other people, and they told them the story. And those people took that story and made it their own, and went clear down to India and across the Middle East. And in the Middle East, there was a town called Ur. You can see it up there. And these are trade routes. And if you'll notice the ones that are going east and north, those trade routes led to people who knew the story. And so the story was exchanged with people from Ur. And they made the story their own. And one of those people was born there, and he was known as Abram, who changed his name in the Bible to Abraham, the father of the Hebrew people. So you see, tales and traditions weave a web through different peoples and languages, and each uses them in their own way, but always finding in the night sky things like the pole star, the great bear, and in our hearts, the tree of life, and maybe the divine mountain that the Hebrews call Zion. And for many, a sense of long past and a yearning to return to that beautiful garden. Another part of the story has others from the Golden Mountain wanderings, even years before those people, not south, but away to the east. Map number 3. They were following the hunt and steering by the pole star, crossing the Ice Age bridge. You can see there, Asia is connected by ice with North America. And they came across there, and also people came by sea. These people didn't worship trees or mountains or the creatures they lived among. They were part of their families, like brothers and sisters. They sustained the people. And that is also part of the story we want to tell this morning. There is in our book of songs, the living tradition, words of a chant from the Navajo people of the Southwest. I have changed the English words very, very slightly to fit the tune called Morning is Broken, a tune that will have importance as we tell more of this very long story to your parents. Danny will start with the first 2 lines, and if you are, as your spirit moves you and are able, rise and sing along with him after the first 2 lines.
Please rise in body or spirit. I'll sing 2 lines and then we can all sing together. Beauty before me, beauty behind me, above and below me, beauty is there. Beauty surrounds me, and she immerses me in my young days and in my old age. Beauty before me, beauty behind me, above and below me, beauty is there. I shall walk quietly the beautiful trail, begun in beauty the end. May be seated.
And that is the story. Now we will light the chalice with these words by Mircea Eliade. For the historian of religions, every manifestation of the sacred is important. Every rite, every myth, every belief or divine figure reflects the experience of the sacred and hence implies the notions of being, of meaning, and of truth. The children are welcome to go to their classes now while the adults hear the long version of the story we just heard.
To learn in love and grow in wisdom, shine your light on all you do. Go in love, our hearts go with you. Go in behold, our joys go too. Learn in love and grow in wisdom, shine your light on all we do. Perhaps one of the losses among all of the gains from the ascendancy of science and materialism has been the degeneration of, respect for, and understanding of myth. Myth has come to be synonymous with lies and deceit and phoniness. We dismiss something by saying, that's just a myth. In correcting outdated or inaccurate beliefs, we call them myths. Myths are what are not true. Only facts are true. We often no longer appreciate that some truths can only be approached through metaphor and symbol, that myths have truth, bind people together, and myths that are at base a lie can tear people apart. But the degeneration of myth by the advance of science may well be rooted in the arrogance of our own monotheistic traditions, which claimed that all religious truth belonged only to themselves, and which sowed many of the seeds of Western imperialism and encouraged genocide against the heathen savages, as well as terrorism. You see, we can determine what myths have truth, and it's shared myth that holds a group or culture together. Myths can be positive or negative, in effect, or both. We can choose where truth lies. Even science has had and probably has myths. I sometimes wonder how different our religious history might have been if the Christian church had not been grafted onto the Roman Empire, that if the Celtic form of Christianity, which arose in the Isles as imperial Rome collapsed, had had greater influence than it was able to achieve before becoming subservient to Rome. We will now light the first of our 3 candles, the Irish candle. Fode an solas bag an chargawan, honam edon frastel den spirit, cosnam nagus mirnam agus solas show nos dan vart credu, son realtach den nart hollis.
In Central Europe emerged a people the Greeks called Keltoi. The Celts were and are one of the vast number of peoples we now call Indo-Europeans, coming from those nomadic tribes which spoke a common language or dialects of a common language many scholars locate in the southern Russia of 4000 BCE. A distinct Celtic language may have begun in the Bronze Age. They first came into history around 800 BCE in the Austrian Alps. As their influence grew beyond their cradle, they came in contact in the east with their distant Scythian cousins, and in the west with the original non-Indo-European inhabitants of Europe. The people the Greeks and Romans described were possibly only aristocratic, minority, warrior, artistic, and intellectual classes. The people who adopted and influenced Celtic speech and, especially, culture were probably predominantly non-Indo-European, especially in the British Isles.
At their greatest extent, Celtic languages and cultures covered an area rivaling the empires of Alexandria or Rome. The Romans called them Galli, and the Greeks Galatae, as well as Celts. They held sway from the British Isles to almost the Rock of Gibraltar, from the Low Countries to central Italy, across southern Germany into Eastern Europe and the Balkans, even into Asia Minor. St. Paul wrote an epistle to people in the ancient province of Galatia in Asia Minor, modern-day Ankara in Turkey, who may have been Celts. There was once Galicia in Poland and Ukraine, and there is Galicia in Spain. The sense of who they were at their deepest core can be found in their art. An unbroken line from the artifacts at Hallstatt in Austria of 800 years before Christ, brilliant ornamental metalwork continuing to the magnificent Book of Kells in early Christian Ireland, to the complex intricacy of Kinghaneth, the ancient poetic forms of Wales, to the skirl of pipes and the swirl of harp and the vocal embroidery of the Sean-Nós a cappella song of the Gael. And what is the character of these art forms? They are fluid, free, and individually imaginative and expressive. It's as if the Celts had created in all aspects of art a kind of jazz. Perhaps it stems from the fact that in a great sense, they were initially people of the forest. What they may have seen were abstract patterns of light sifting through trees, the swirl of waters in mountain streams, the slithering of vines, the pattern of branches against a winter sky. Whatever it was, they developed no unity, not even cultural and linguistic. The Celtic people were individualistic to a fault, brilliant, impulsive, imaginative, ruthless, generous, eloquent, fair-minded, fearless and optimistic, conquerable because of their inability of any real political unity, but indomitable nonetheless.
From the Scythians, they took to riding horses and wearing trousers. They also adopted the Scythian cult of the head as the seat of the soul. So they collected the heads of the vanquished, placing them inside slots in short stone pillars. Perhaps also from the Scythians came the old tale of tree and great bear, Artos in Old Celtic, which later is the root for Arthur. From the more ancient peoples to their west, they may have ameliorated their Indo-European patriarchalism with a respect and an accepted status for women, not to be equaled until the 20th century. This doesn't mean that they cast patriarchy aside entirely, however. They introduced iron into Western Europe, were the first to shoe horses, developed the iron plowshare, built the first roads, and invented the reaper, which was later lost until another Celt later on, Cyrus McCormick, reinvented it centuries later. They made their fortunes from mining, metal craft, and trade, as well as agriculture and husbandry. Oh, and yes, looting, pillaging, and cattle rustling.
Their warriors had a swagger. Alexander the Great asked a Celtic delegation if they didn't have someone they feared, apparently expecting him to be an object of terror. The reply was that they feared nothing or no man, except possibly the possibility of the sky falling on their heads. Alexander concluded that the Celts were insufferable braggarts. Well, what had they to fear? Death was but a passage between worlds. The spirit and material worlds were contiguous and omnipresent, more so at some times than others. So there was nothing to be afraid of. If you want to know the origin of many ideas in science fiction, you need look no further than the lore of the Celts. Time travel, no problem. Parallel universes, yep. Questing and adventure to unknown worlds, definitely. Avalon, the underground world of the Sidhe, the Isles of the Blessed, the land under the waves, the land of youth, all were but a step away. Spirit pervades everything: rocks, wells, animals, trees, springs, stars, sun, moon, the earth herself, and can drift from one to another as if connected by some spiritual wormhole. Here are two snatches from the first Celtic poets from whom we have ascribed writings: the Irish Amergin and the British Taliesin. We have connected them into a litany.
So we're now going to divide the room, and those from the middle section, the half to the north, will be led by Frank, and then this half will be led by me, and we'll read this litany together. You may remain seated for this reading.
The triumphal song of Amergin after the defeat in what is now Ireland of the people of the goddess Danu by the Gaelic Milesians from Spain in Irish legend. I am the stag of the seven tines.
A legendary song of the bard Taliesin. I am Taliesin. I sing perfect meter, which will last to the end of the world. I know why there is an echo in the hollow, why silver gleams, why breath is black, why liver is bloody, why a cow has horns, why a woman is affectionate, why milk is white, why holly is green, why brine is salt, why ale is bitter.
I am the flood cresting plains. I am the wind sweeping tranquil waters. I am the swift swimming salmon in the shallow pool.
I know where the cuckoos of summer are in winter. I know what beasts there are at the bottom of the sea. How many spears in battle? How many drops in a shower? Why fishes have scales? Why a white swan has black feet?
I am the hawk harassing its prey.
I have been a blue salmon. I have been a dog, a stag, a roebuck on the mountain, a stock, a spade, an axe in the hand, a stallion, a bull, a buck.
I am the god who inflames desire.
I have been dead. I have been alive. I am Taliesin.
I am Amergan. I am the soul of the Celts. Caesar wrote that it took 20 years for a candidate to become a full-fledged druid, male or female. For a druid was a walking encyclopedia, a custodian by memory of all knowledge, lore, law, history, song, and ritual of the people. Language was as much a living thing as any other, vital and dynamic. To write it down was to, in a sense, kill it, freeze it. As a result, there are few examples of written Celtic language before the rise of the 6 present Celtic languages of the Celtic fringe. Brief inscriptions, mostly on stone, generally patronymics or dedications to various gods or goddesses, invocations and curses, and the Coligny calendar in France, which gives us evidence of their time reckoning.
There were elements of 2 religious traditions that were considered a potential threat to the Roman Empire, Judaism and Druidism. Both were sources of sedition and rebellion, and both were suppressed. Caesar destroyed the sacred groves of Gaul and drove the Druids underground. A later Roman general was reported to have done likewise to the grove and college on the Isle of Anglesey, which is Ynys Môn in Welsh, slaughtering the Druids and their families. Later, there would be another faith that talked of a crucified man who in time was considered the Son of God. The main crime that raided crucifixion in the empire was sedition and rebellion. Mary will light the second candle, the Welsh candle. Gnawn can nair goleini bach hwn ar wyne byddaiar, cysegraf hwn i'r gwasanaeth yr ysbryd, am ddiffynaf a choleddir goleini hwn fel arwydd byw, a gweithred ffydd mewn realaeth nerth a goleini.
Until Christianity became the religion of the Roman state, it was one of many religious alternatives in the empire, sometimes persecuted and a scapegoat, sometimes tolerated, but not always tolerant within itself. You can't help in reading Paul's epistle to the Galatians, sensing the seeds of the later conflict between the Celtic Christian style of the British Isles and Rome, or the insistence of Irish to remain Catholic in the face of English Protestantism, or the other Celts of the Isles becoming stubbornly nonconformist against the Church of England. One can almost hear Paul telling the Galatians to stop being easily swayed and toe the party line. It is sometimes said that if you have any 3 Celts together, you'll have 5 opinions.
And yet, of all the areas of the world that were Christianized in the early going, once it was legitimized, there were virtually no martyrs in the Isles. It seems as if Christianity was just the next road in the Celtic quest. If there's anything in our own idealized traditions that is Celtic, it's the quest. The notion of fair play in the pursuit of honor, glory, or achievement. It was refined in the Middle Ages into the code of chivalry, and its myths were Camelot and the Holy Grail. Originally, the cauldron of resurrection and inexhaustible plenty.
But who absorbed whom when Celtic Christians converted Celtic pagans? A triune God was easily accepted and understood, for after all, there was, in Celtic tradition, the triune great goddess, Brigantia in Britain and the continent, who is Brigit in modern Anglo-Irish, and who later was a real person, adopted the goddess's attributes and feast, and was canonized. Mary, the Mother of God, made perfect Celtic sense. Of course, the Holy Spirit was the female element in the Trinity. Besides, the sacrifice in the Eucharist did not entail killing your best calf or those you captured in battle. Gods and goddesses became saints or heroes, and many of the remaining Druids put aside the triskelion, the badge of their office, for the Celtic cross, and many became monks. Saint Columba called Christ his Druid.
They moved back and forth. St. Patrick was a British Romano Celt. The patron saint of Cornwall and Cornish miners, St. Piran, came from Ireland, where he was known as Kieran of Syre. Their inspiration was not only the local culture into which they were born, but also the desert fathers of the Middle East, especially Egypt, who went off singly into the wilderness to live the ascetic life. In the Isles, people were attracted to these solitaries, and communities grew up around them. True to Celtic culture, these seekers of God could be male or female, sometimes living in community together, and both equally officiating at the Mass. Here was created a special form of Catholic Christianity exemplified by the words of St. Patrick's Lorica, an inclusive Christianity that saw existence, spirit, and Christ interweaved in both immanence and transcendence. Please just join in the English if you wish after I sing it in the Gaelic. This is only a small part of a larger song. Please rise in spirit and body if you are able. Chris Leum, Chris Rom, Christi Moiai, Christistianum, Christ Fum, Christos Mocion, Christer Molaias, Christer Mochle, Christi Moluidum, Christi Mohase, Christi Nacrie Quiniorum, Christi Nachbel, Christi Nachsul, Christi Nachlus, Aeshanium. Christ be with me, Christ before me, Christ behind me, Christ within, Christ below me, Christ above me, Christ on my right hand, Christ on my left. Christ in my sleeping, Christ in my waking, Christ in the hearts which think of me, Christ in the mouth of all who speak to me, Christ in each eye that looks to me. Thank you. One of the new things I wear on Sundays and at religious or spiritual occasions is a Celtic tree of life as well as my Celtic cross. Consider this cross, typically made from one hunk of stone. Here it may well remind one of the Native American medicine wheel. The cross is the hub and spokes of the great wheel, which may also represent the sun. And the upright beam can be said to represent the great tree of life. And the cross is often embossed with the Celtic braid of interconnectedness, for all existence, spirit and matter is connected and holy. Is it solely Christian, or is it adopted by Christians? I suppose it depends on the point of view. The oldest full stone-built crosses on the Isles are from the Christian era, but cruder ones etched on stone, rather like it, date from much earlier. One could say that the Druids survived and changed, yet remained the same, shape-shifted in good Celtic fashion, and the Celts maintained their identity and gave the new faith their own special weave. Anche is Gerag on temple, Nihe is Gerag on altar. Whoever is nearest the church is not nearest the altar. That's Irish.
Ho agasa viregluis, pethavu baraduis. Nearer the church, farthest from heaven. That's Welsh.
Almadu bras en onreu deus son oradialu. Riches and honors make devils of saints. That's Breton.
Thomas Cahill, in his book, How the Irish Saved Civilization, shows how Ireland was the source of the dispersing of learning in the so-called Dark Ages, as Irish monks carried the faith across Europe from Iceland to Russia and south. This was in the period prior to the first schism that divided the church into Roman Catholic and Orthodox. The Celtic style had more in common with the Eastern Greek and Middle Eastern sensibility than with conventional Roman expression, as exemplified by the iconic aspects of the Book of Kells, as well as its approach to the material world.
In his book, Wisdom of the Celtic Saints, Edward Sellner, professor emeritus at the University of St. Catherine in St. Paul, Minnesota, writes, "In many ways, this Celtic spirituality is the foundation of Anglican, Episcopalian, and Methodist spirituality. And because of its love of the desert fathers and mothers, it has a great affinity with the spirituality of the Eastern Orthodox. With its focus on nature and the entire spiritual realm, and its respect for ancestors, visions, and dreams, it finds resonance with Native American spirituality too. Thus, the spirituality of the Christian Celts has great ecumenical value. It also has great special appeal for many of us today who are concerned about the ecological survival of our planet."
The Reformation, particularly its more strict and staid forms, attempted with varying success to expunge what it saw as pagan Celtic Catholic idolatry and superstition. A Scottish Parliamentary Act of 1581 complained,
"The dregs of idolatry yet remain in diverse parts of the realm by using of pilgrimage to some chapels, wells, crosses, and such other monuments of idolatry, as also by observing the festal days of the saints, sometimes named their patrons, in setting forth the bonfires, singing the carols within and about kirks at certain seasons of the year." What this sacrilege was like can be read in Carmina Gadelica, a monumental work that took decades and 6 large volumes to compile, containing prayers, invocations for any and all things in life, and many other religious observances gleaned from the common folk of the Highlands.
John Wesley, the founder of the Methodists, tried his best, along with his estranged friend George Whitefield, to stamp out the rowdier forms of Celtishness in Wales and Cornwall. Could they succeed where the crown had had trouble doing it? The church did take root, but took on its own Celtic stamp. In the case of Wales, it emerged with the chapels, circuit riders, and Sunday schools, and the tradition of the Gaman Vagani, that unleashing of hwyl, enthusiasm and joy in congregational hymn singing sessions, and its expression in the composition of hymns, many of which have become standard fare in the hymnals of both Protestant and Catholic. The Welsh and Cornish will sing a hymn anywhere, including the pub, and especially at rugby, football, and wrestling matches. So let's all sing a good Welsh hymn. We will sing it in Welsh, we will sing it in Welsh, and then everyone in English.
I think we should just sing the first verse, and then everybody sing the English.
Yes, we'll sing one verse in Welsh, and then the English verses. Reintegrating dros y broniau pes, am and seek thee every hour. Come, my beloved, daylight fades, my song has reached its power. Draw thou my longing and my love from false and earthly ways to that one clear and changeless mark that ever faithful stays. Draw from me my wayward thirst for things that are not true. Fill me with joy enduring love, whose blessings offered me and you. In this tale, mythical and historical, we have intertwined the warp and woof of the plaid, the weave of sound and season, the sense of place and clan, the oneness with nature and one's bit of ground, the Christ within as well as the Christ beyond, the purifying energy of fire, the life-giving, life-taking, life-sustaining, and healing water, the adventure of life and death, the ancestors who are with us wherever we wander on whatever quest is ours, the sense of longing for what is fading or lost, which in Welsh is hiraeth. That is our tale.
The Fianna, the troop of warriors who were led by Finn McCool, were debating music one day. One of them said that the sweetest sound was the clash of spear on shield. Another said it was the swell of the sea on the shore. Another said it was the sigh of a well and thoroughly loved maiden. They turned to Finn. He thought for a moment and then said, "The sweetest sound is the music of what happens." We light our third candle with words in English that match the Irish and Welsh of the first two candles.
I kindle this little light on the earth plane. I dedicate it to the service of the Spirit. I guard and cherish this light as a living symbol and as an act of faith in the reality of the powers of light.
The Celtic peoples survive today in spite of centuries of decline and dominance by non-Celts, absorbing what they choose, turning it to their own uses and sensibility. Kenneth Palmyre is a Cornish hymnodist who has set this very old Celtic blessing to music. The peace of the running wave to you, the peace of the flowing air to you, the peace of the quiet earth to you, the peace of the shining stars to you, and the peace of the Son of Peace to you.